Ready? I'll start. Good evening, everyone. My name is Robin Brumfield, and I'm thrilled to be here today as your leadership training specialist. I'd like to introduce you to the rest of the team, though, or just let you know who's part of the leadership development team. And that is Mary Sotomayor. I don't believe she's able to join us today. Kathleen McEnroe, and our DO, who I have seen here, is Joan Wapnick. And like anything else, we're part of the governance team, but we can't do anything by ourselves. We have to, we're all part of a team, part of a team. So I just want to give an opportunity for us to be welcomed by our PTA, New York State PTA president, and allow her to give a few words. Patty?
Thank you so much, Robin. It's certainly a pleasure to be here tonight for this webinar, starting off the year. Uh, PTA, there's one thing that we rely on that makes us successful, and that's partnerships. And throughout my time serving at the New York State PTA level, I can't talk about any better partnership than the one that we have with AIM Insurance. They are receptive, friendly, helpful, and understanding of PTA. And so they have heard it all. And every time we come to them for help or assistance, they already know the answer, I think, before we finish the question. And so I can't think of a better partnership. And for the president, Jamie Fagan, to be joining us tonight really certainly speaks to the strength of that partnership. So we thank you, Jamie, for being here. And I know there's going to be a lot of great information shared tonight, and I'm looking forward to hearing it.
Thank you so much. So, everyone, look, we're pleased that you're able to join us this evening, and I'm sure you're happy that you're able here to learn the tools needed for all of us to become better leaders in your respectful council and or units. But before we get started, the reason why the leadership webinar, came about was because we just felt we wanted to provide these tools to enhance and make us better leaders in our respectful units and councils. So as a special thank you and a special goal for everyone, we developed the special leadership development pin. And all you have to do to get this pin is you have to at least attend at least 6 of these webinars. You have to absorb that knowledge. And and the thing about it is not just getting this information, but applying it to your respectful unit and or council. And once you've completed the steps, you demonstrate your leadership in action. You'll unlock the leadership development, the exclusive elite leadership development pin. So it's not just a pin, it's a symbol of your dedication of excellence as you excel to be a leadership in our PTA community. Now, we're going to get ready to dive in. We're going to turn it over to Jamie, but I wanted you to know I said something about, I don't know if I said it, but in order to unlock the key that you get, the leadership development pin for tonight's webinar, you have to know that special question. So the special question that I know Jamie's going to cover and that you need to have the answer to is, what is covered under the crime and or embezzlement insurance policy? Who is covered, excuse me, who is covered under the crime and or / embezzlement insurance policy? Thank you very much. And I'm going to turn this over to Jamie so she can give us the information needed. Here you go, Jamie. Go ahead.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Patty. That was a very warm welcome. I appreciate it. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice just a little bit. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. Are we visible? Okay, I assume everybody can see. All right, good. So, the point of tonight is to give you guys a little bit of a summary on the types of insurance that we offer, give you tips on, how to reach us, how to utilize the resources that we give you, what you should be, what risk you really face in running your PTA, and lots of other information. So with that, I'll just introduce AIM for anybody who doesn't know. We are a small insurance agency in Dallas, Texas. We're family run, and about 30 years ago, we started insuring PTAs, and that is pretty much what we do. We insure small educational nonprofits. So when you call us, we have an entire team that is dedicated to PTA. We don't sell homeowners or car insurance or any other types of insurance, really. We are dedicated to PTAs and other parent-teacher type groups that are associated with educational institutions. So with that, we feel really proud of the knowledge that we have around PTA and what PTA leadership really faces on a day-to-day basis. Our policy is tailored to it, and we definitely understand it. We know that you guys are trying to run small businesses with volunteers that are turning over on a regular basis. So we definitely want to make it as easy as we can for you. So with that, I will start by talking about the New York PTA insurance package. And that includes 3 coverages. There's general liability, and we'll get into what each one of these covers, but the general liability coverage, which is basically for your event. There's additional, aspects to those coverage, but we also call it event coverage frequently. The commercial crime or bonding, so this protects your money, and then directors and officers. This protects your board, your leadership. Really, it is not limited to just your directors and officers. It is anybody that you task with making decisions on behalf of your organization. So it's a really excellent coverage to have, especially when you're asking people to, take charge of these decisions. So I'll go ahead and get into each of these coverages. So general liability protects you from lawsuits resulting from bodily injury and property damage. There's often some misunderstanding about what type of property damage. This is liability specific. So if it's damage to a venue, so let's say you break a TV in the gymnasium, that's property damage liability. Or you tear up the gymnasium floor or back into a hedge at one of the venues. All property damage that is covered under the general liability. Property damage that is not covered is your personal property. That requires a separate line of business, which we will talk about towards the end of the presentation. General liability has a component called medical payments. And this is every package includes $5,000. This is per person. So this basically coverage is just to give you quick access to out-of-pocket expenses. So if a kid breaks their arm on a bounce house or whatever happens, and the parent doesn't want to sue the PTA, but they would like some assistance with the medical bills, that's what the medical payments coverage is for. It's really easy to file a claim. Essentially it's just our adjusters gathering medical payment information, and then they reimburse them with a check. So it deters lawsuits. It's just overall a great coverage to have, and it is standard in every one of your general liability policies. Don't ever hesitate to make a claim with AIM, even if you're not sure if it's covered. Always err on the side of caution with making a claim. It also includes hired and non-owned auto liability of $1 million. This is intended, and hired and non-owned is very jargony, but hired would be your chartered buses. If you hire, maybe you rent a van for a certain event, and non-owned auto liability. So this is really for parents or volunteers who are driving their own vehicles. It doesn't cover people driving other people's vehicles. So it's really, this coverage is intended for if you hire a vehicle for your event, so again, any chartered, buses, that type of thing, and then a non-owned auto. So your parents or volunteers that are driving an auto in the scope of PTA business. So we don't typically encourage transportation by parents or volunteers for an event. We discourage that, but that is a type of activity that would be covered. We would typically see this, even if you have a PTA volunteer that's going and picking up some supplies for, an event, flowers or whatever it is. They're on PTA business and they're using their own auto. So if they're injured doing that business, it would be covered under the hired and non-owned auto. We always get a lot of questions about this, so I'm happy to go into it a little bit more if anybody has questions. And I did already talk about basically what the hired and not owned auto was. The protection under general liability protects your PTA members, your volunteers, and your employees. Again, this is liability, so it means that if your volunteer causes liability, so they cause an incident, then your policy covers that volunteer and protects them, even if they're named individually, like they did something and somebody sues the PTA and this volunteer personally, the coverage will step in and protect employees, volunteers, and PTA members. There's $2 million on every unit's policy with no deductible. So yeah, $2 million per occurrence in aggregate. So we never ever see claims this high. So it's a very robust coverage for PTA. You will find in our insurance guide, we have several good resources. And if you are, oh, I'm sorry, this has a outdated date. It says 2023, but we do refresh the insurance guide every year. Although I will say there has not been any changes in the last several years. But in the guide, we try to make it as succinct as possible. I think it's about 25 pages, and it's not designed to read from front to back. It's just designed to be a resource where if you're, doing something, you can quickly see like, well, how do I handle this? Within that guide is a playlist of events. And we often will print this out at conventions and just hand it out because it seems to be the most commonly used and valued resource. And this is just a list of standard activities that you may do. You can see the green is things that are covered. The yellow, in most of these cases, they are covered under the policy, but the yellow means be careful because there is a tendency for there to either be high risk activity with this event, or it could involve things that are not covered under the policy. So for instance, inflatable slides, that is a high risk activity. It is a pause event, meaning be careful. You might consider waivers. It is not required by the policy, but you might consider a waiver. You might consider if there is a mechanical component to your inflatable slides. We've seen the ones where they have a thing that turns around in the middle and knocks kids down. There is no coverage for a mechanical component to inflatable slides. So that's another reason why it's a pause item. We encourage units that if you're not sure why it's a pause item, just call us and tell us what you're doing, and we will tell you any actions that you might need to take around that. And then stop is don't do it. It's not covered by your policy. Don't do it. And if you have questions as to why, we're happy to answer those. But again, this is in the insurance guide. We highly recommend that you keep a copy of the insurance guide on hand. We can provide one at any time if you need one. And the next type of coverage that we're going to talk about in part of the standard package is the crime or bonding coverage. We also call this embezzlement coverage. The number one claim that we see is embezzlement. It is not the highest dollar claim, but it is the most frequent claim. And I'm sure probably every PTA out there knows somebody who has experienced an embezzlement claim. It happens all day, every day. And it's really unfortunate. The policy protects basically your money against not only embezzlement, but robbery and theft. And it protects anyone who handles your money. So this is important. There are policies that will only protect if the treasurer steals your money or the president steals your money. But under this policy, it is anybody who you trust with your money. So if you're, you have someone that's responsible for collecting money at the front of a carnival or something like that, and you entrust them to, count the money, put it in the cash box, whatever it is, take it to the bank, that money is protected. That person is included under the policy in terms of if they steal the money. So that's an important part. The limit on the standard bond policy that's included in the package is $50,000 with a $250,000 deductible. We do offer limits higher than that if anybody ever thought that they needed more. However, $50,000 is a pretty solid amount. And we recommend just looking at your annual revenue. And if your annual budget exceeds $50,000, it might be worth, but otherwise it's a pretty good limit. When people ask me, hey, we have a really tight budget, what should we purchase? Ultimately, general liability has to be my answer. And I know that we all, everybody on this call has a standardized package, but just to really, emphasize how important it is, I was going to say that I have a hard time not saying crime first, just because we see so many claims. So all the things that New York PTA lays out that you should do to be so careful about your money, about, making sure that you are doing your audits, doing your monthly bank statements. Let's see if we have this on here. Under the AIM policy, there are 2 requirements of coverage, and these are super important. I know that this is laid out by New York as well, but you must do your annual audit of your books, and you must sign off on your bank statements monthly. So whether you're doing that via email, and I don't know if in New York, if you guys have a way that you require it being done, but if you submit a bond claim, an embezzlement claim, FF claim to AIM, we will confirm those 2 things. We want to see proof that you did your audit, and we need to see proof that bank statements were checked monthly by someone who doesn't have check signing authority. If we cannot prove those items, if you cannot prove those items, the claim will most likely be denied. So super important for those 2 items to be well-minded under the crime coverage. With that, I will move on to the 3rd coverage under the standardized package, which is the directors and officers liability. So this one is a little more intangible. It protects officers from lawsuits resulting from wrongful acts. So what are the wrongful acts? Misleading statements, negligent acts, discrimination, misrepresentation. Still, you're like, what is that? My favorite example of one of our directors and officers liability claims, it's usually what we see is that it's somebody who makes a very well-meaning decision on behalf of the organization, and somebody takes an issue with it. We had a PTA where they had a PTA meeting, and they had one member that tended to get out of line, pretty loud, potentially violent. And so they asked the campus police to attend the meeting just in case things got out of hand. Well, it did get out of hand, and they asked the campus police to please escort the member off for everyone's safety. And based on all the details, we totally agreed that was the right action. They agreed that they took the best action for everybody, and they got sued for a violation of this person's civil rights. They had to defend that claim. So again, what we normally see is that it is a well-meaning decision that somebody took an issue with. The ones that we have listed here are a little bit more pointed in terms of discrimination or misrepresentation, but it could just be as simple as they didn't like what you did with your money. Now, it sounds really frivolous, but people will, that is happening. We're seeing a lot of claims right now around elections, and maybe someone was asked to step down, or they found out about a pretty negative history about someone that was causing a lot of unrest within the organization and some concern about the person's actions, and they asked them to step down. We're seeing people sue the PTA for that same reason. So excellent coverage to have. And again, it covers anybody, if it, a committee chair, if you task someone as an organization with making decisions on behalf of your PTA, then that person is usually a covered individual under the directors and officers liability coverage. The policy limit is $1 million per PTA, and there is no deductible. So again, it never hurts to put in a claim. If you have something going on that you think may lead to a claim, it's always a great idea to put us on notice. And it's as simple as, calling us or sending us an email. We may ask for some, official, very simple documentation. We'll set up a claim that's way we've just put the carrier on notice that, hey, this is going on. And then if something comes of it, we'll be ready for it. So that is the overview of the standardized coverages. And now we'll talk a little bit about the optional coverage upgrades. So there's a couple endorsements under the general liability that you can opt for. So the extended medical payments. We talked about the medical payments is $5,000 under everybody's policy, and you just have kind of easy access to those payments if someone gets hurt. Nobody needs to be sued. It's just as easy as, the parent giving the medical records and providing that to an adjuster and getting the payment. So we offer limits up to $50,000 for extended medical payments. And this is something to consider only really if you're doing frequent high risk activities. So if you do a couple of bounce houses a year, you do roller skating parties, things where we're seeing a pretty good amount of injuries and high dollar injuries, you might consider this. Again, having that component deters people from suing you. If you can supplement those payments, you're much less likely to get sued. We don't find that that's often necessary, but again, it's there if you felt like you needed it. The next type is media liability, and this is gaining a lot of steam. We've offered this for probably about 6 or 7 years. This is coverage for basically your website and your social media traffic. This covers, Facebook, Instagram, again, your website, anywhere online that you are posting information. And it is covering you for if you don't have trademark permission. So you have an event and you cater Chick-fil-A and you use Chick-fil-A's logo. You post it on your website as part of the flyer for the event. And Chick-fil-A is a company who has, they pay companies to have algorithms that go out and crawl websites to see who's using their logos without permissions, and then they fine you. So this is becoming more prevalent. Probably the most frequent scenario that we see is posting pictures without permission. So just, pictures of kids, at events, and the parent, you have that one parent that is really not okay with that. It could be any other type of misrepresentation or somehow making confidential information public. And again, it could be something that doesn't seem confidential to you. Maybe scores from who knows what it would be. Well, obviously not test scores, but I'm thinking if you had a contest at the PTA event and you posted the scores and a parent got really upset that you had posted everyone's scores, something like that, they could sue you and the media liability would cover that if it was posted on social media or on your website. That coverage, I think it varies around, $70 to $110 a year. So if you have a lot of activity on your website or on your social media, definitely call us. Happy to talk to you about it and consider if that's something that you might need. The last optional coverage that we'll talk about is the property insurance. And I'm sorry, I do have slides on each one of these, and I went into a lot of detail, so I'll kind of skim over the details so you guys can see them after this. But property insurance, this is covering all of your business personal property. So popcorn machines, auction items, spiritware, fundraising merchandise. I know a lot of PTAs take possession of, chocolate bars or tons of t-shirts, things like that, and you have them in your possession and then you pay the vendor at the end of the fundraiser. Well, if something happens to those items before you get to pay the vendor, you're out. It could be, I know a lot of PTAs, they might have $5,000 in property from that vendor for that fundraising event. So we really encourage units to consider the property insurance if you're taking possession of a lot of merchandise, or if you have personal property that is particularly valuable. And then my next slide basically go into the details of everything I've just talked about, the medical payments coverage and why it's important as it deters lawsuits. The media liability, and I have the details here, sorry. posting photographs, using trademarks, misrepresentation of information, and making confidential information public. And then the property policy, as we just talked about, covers your personal property owned by the PTA, and a list of some of the common items that we cover. So that is essentially the summary of the coverages that we offer at AIM. I do really just want to enforce that we are a resource to all of the units. You can call us for help. I mean, we partner very close with the state in terms of requirements and audits and things that you're required to do. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. We don't have a phone tree. It is a busy time of year, but as long as, you know, we're answering calls on the, first few rings anytime we can. So please reach out to us, and we appreciate, everything that you guys do, and we understand that it's not easy.
We do have a couple questions, if you want to go over those.
Sure.
So one question they were asking, and I believe this was back, especially when covering like medical things and stuff like that, and it was, or injuries. Do you have to be a PTA member to be covered, or does it cover anyone at a PTA event?
That is a great question. And you know what? I think we're going to have to start including that in our resources, because it's being asked more and more. And no, you do not have to be a PTA member.
Okay. I also have, let's see if that's a follow-up. Hold on one. So another one, especially going over red activities, is there supplemental insurance available to purchase to cover those events?
Which type of event?
Red activities.
Oh, we do not offer any type of supplemental insurance for those types of activities. And I'm not aware, those are the high risk items. We honestly, we cover more activities than any other carrier in the PTA market. There's not a ton of us, but there are a lot more regulations. So I think you would be hard pressed to find anybody else who is covering those specific stop items. What I would say is the way to transfer that risk, if you have the opportunity, is to have, if you're, doing, let's say, a bounce house, and this is not common, but if the bounce house would add your PTA as an additional insured, it means that if something happens, there would be coverage for the PTA under the bounce house insurance in the event that something happens. So just the way that school districts are asking you to add them under your policy, so that if the school district gets sued in connection with a PTA event, there's coverage. You can do that for a venue or an event. It's just probably any venue that might be connected with some of these higher risk activities. For example, an axe throwing event. They're probably not going to agree to add the PTA as an additional insured, because they probably already have tons of very well-written waivers asking people to waive their rights in the first place in case something happens. But if you have a specific question, don't hesitate to call us. We can talk through it and just confirm.
Jamie, I have a question. When you covered the social media, we have a number of units, and I know that we try very hard and we're diligent about getting permission. But if for whatever reason in highlighting the event and you don't have the permission of the parent, and you have that child that may have been public, put on your social media, does the media coverage cover us?
Meaning if somebody tries to hold you responsible for posting a picture without permission?
Yes.
Yes, that's probably the most common scenario.
Okay.
Okay, so
Thank
there is
you.
a follow-up question to the red activity.
Okay.
So if they do get supplemental insurance through a secondary carrier, is there any impact to the coverage that they have with AIM?
Nope.
Okay. All right, let's see. We also have questions about transportation. Can a PTA subsidize field trips?
So this is, I mean, this is something that I think all PTAs face. We get this question a lot. What we want to do is, it seems like there's a, incident of the school doesn't want to cover it and they want to push it off on the PTA. What we recommend is that if you're going to pay for transportation, that you, and I'm assuming we mean, if there's a school event and they ask PTA to pay for the transportation, was that right, Theta?
Mm.
Yeah, we would encourage you to gift that money to the school so that you don't have liability over if kids get injured on that that bus event. I mean, it's really the school's event, and the PTA doesn't have any oversight really over what's going on the bus or how it's happening. So we recommend that you gift the money to them rather than to pay for it directly. But you can do that.
Okay. So we have a question about a particular scenario where they don't have an area of their own to lock up their items. So they share a space with other school officials and staff. Would property coverage cover those things when they're not able to secure their items?
So the policy language actually says it has to be in your care, custody, and control. We have a lot of PTAs who have them in common areas in the school, but we really want to see that there is some type of control over it. So they have some type of, not just anybody can come in there and take it. Even if it's their own closet or their own something. In most cases, I would say they're going to determine that there's probably coverage. It just depends on what the care, custody, and control is. Like, is it we just put it on a bench in the gymnasium and that's just where we keep it all the time? They're probably going to rule that that's not in your care, custody, control. But if it's in an office somewhere that other people have access to, that would typically be in your care, custody, and control, even though other people have access to it. I know that was a little less than black and white, but that's pretty much how it boils down.
Okay, the last question that I currently have is questions about permits. And I think I'm just going to put it out there because I think more than one person might question this. Generally, do they get their permits through AIM? And I don't have clarification.
What was the last part?
I said I don't have any more details than that. Just that.
Okay. Well, this might be related to a certificate because I know that a lot of times you need a permit to have an event, and you won't get that permit from us. But in order to get the permit, you will oftentimes need to present a certificate of insurance to get the permit from. Maybe it's an event through the city, and you have to get a permit from the city or wherever the venue is. So in that type of permit, you still have to request from them, but they will require a certificate of insurance from you, which you do get from us. Hopefully that answers.
I don't see any questions. I don't know if people have questions they want to ask out loud and they want to raise their hands, or if there's
Well,
anything.
I just want to also state what our President Patty Frazier added. Patty, do you want to say it? Because I thought that was spot on.
About the cabinet?
Yes.
Sure. We've had that experience for many years in schools, buildings, sharing space, which is very generous of the principal and the administration to share that space with you. But again, if you have the opportunity, you can certainly budget some of your PTA funds to purchase a cabinet that would fit in the area where you have been given space that can be locked. And so and if you use that explanation with administration that it will help you maintain your coverage that you have for insurance, they may be willing to partner with you to have that, something like that, put into your space in the building. It's all about,
It depends.
the partnership. We really want to, really talk about that and let our building administration know that we're a nonprofit group. We're a lot of volunteers, but we take our volunteer roles seriously. And many of them maybe don't even realize that we have this insurance. So this is another great thing that you can talk about when you're, talking about the value of PTA, that we have this type of policy in place. A lot of people think we're just covered by the school buildings insurance or the school district, but we have decided that we're going to take this on ourselves to make sure that we have the best care for our volunteers and for all of the people that we're inviting into our events and activities. I think we don't talk a lot about the directors and officers coverage that we have, but really that's a great thing for your nominating committee to be sharing with people when they're seeking out new officers, to let them know that, we know it's a responsibility that you're taking on, but we have this in place to help protect you and to protect your own home assets and such as best we can. So I don't know if you want to add more to that, Jamie, but really this is a comfort that we offer, that we have, and we really should talk about it more often. But again, the phone call to AIM is really seriously just a phone call away. So if you have questions, don't hesitate. They have heard it all, so don't feel like you're asking something that is out there, because I'm sure they have heard it all twice.
We have, and we do our best to give you, I've worked in other areas of insurance where you can never answer a hypothetical, but we understand that you need an answer to a hypothetical, and we do our best to help with that. But yes, I agree with everything, cabinets and such. So yeah, let us know.
Okay, I have a question on general liability covering food sales and concessions. Are they required to have a permit from the Department of Health? And then there's another part of it is, let's see, is that coverage kind of go along with if somebody gets sick from the food?
So the requirements around food safety can vary. And I know districts have their own rules about, I know my kids' school district, you can only bring in store-bought food. You can't bring anything that's been cooked or from home. And I know certain counties have different regulation. And for us, we're in all 50 states. And so we really say you should, go to your district and find out what your district is requiring, because it varies all over the place. But in terms of coverage, yes, there is coverage. And in fact, one of our biggest claims was unfortunately a barbecue event where they were making chicken and they undercooked the chicken. And I think something like 27 people got sick. It was terrible. But yes, that is covered under the policy. But I know it's really discouraged for a lot of districts.
Okay, we have a question about debit card usage and what is the current position on debit card usage?
Highly discouraged. We do not, I know New York PTA does not allow debit card usage, and we really discourage it because just for so many reasons they're dangerous. Credit cards are okay. There is a lot more ability to act on, if people steal funds from credit cards and reporting theft and things like that. But your debit card, it's gone. And who knows when you may or may not get that money back, probably not. So we really discourage the use of debit cards. And New York PTA doesn't allow it.
Okay, if the PTA purchases a table or a chair, hold on, next question came in, or some piece of ordinary furniture or equipment, and someone is injured by using it improperly, like jumping off of it, does the standard policy cover that?
Yes. Unfortunately, yes. And that is the medical payments coverage that we talked about earlier, where you get a standard $5,000 per person, we often call that no fault coverage. And it basically just means whatever happens, as long as it's within the terms of the policy, there's coverage. So we see people that are not making good decisions and we have to pay those claims. So yes,
Okay.
especially with kids.
So the question that came in next, I'm not really sure that that's going to be an aim, but I don't know if anyone else wants to answer. But can you raffle gift cards that are not given by the community, or that are given by the community and not from restaurants that sell alcohol?
I don't know the answer to that question in
Yeah,
New
I was
York.
going to
Do
say, I
you?
don't think that's an aim question.
Sonia, were you going to jump in on that? Because I'm happy to do it if we need to.
I think you should, Patty.
So, one, I would just, as much as you can, discourage the use of the word raffle. I think what we're looking at is a drawing, like we're having an event and, it's a door prize. That's a better use of that language, or we're having a drawing, or we're going to have a giveaway. Just because raffle kind of puts you in the world of gambling and gaming, and then that's a whole nother set of guidelines. And this is really not in the sense of raffle, that somebody gave you money for a chance to win the gift card that you're going to give away. So that's one. I would discourage the use of that language if you can. Now, as far as giving those away, you have to ask the question again for me, because I was so on the raffle thing. Yes, you can. You can give those away. We just discourage also them being too high value, right? So if you're doing anything with gift cards and somebody is generously going to donate some gift cards to you, please keep them at a very low level, $10, $15. I would not go over 25.
Okay. So there's a follow-up question to axe throwing. If they have supplemental insurance from another carrier, and let's see, assuming an event is run where axe throwing is the included activity, what does AIM cover, and more importantly, not cover if someone is injured at the event if the injury is unrelated to the axe throwing activity?
If your injury is unrelated to axe throwing, you're good. You could literally be at a shooting range, and as long as the injury is not in any way related to that activity, there is no exclusion under the policy. It is only for the loss. So we look at the loss and we say, was this covered, or was this caused by an excluded event? So if you want to go to a venue where axe throwing happens, as long as and you're not doing any axe throwing, even if another party is doing axe throwing and it comes into your area, if there's an injury related to an axe, even if you didn't do it, it's now an excluded event. But if you can do anything you want at the venue where axe throwing is happening, as long as the loss has nothing to do with that excluded event.
Okay. If there's an outdoor event like a movie night that is adjacent to a playground and a child is injured on the playground, are they covered?
Yes, that's considered part of your event at that point, especially because you allowed that child to wander over there and it's kind of part of the grounds where you are. We would consider that part of your event and there would be coverage.
Okay. So if we want to go back to raffles, 'cause there's a follow-up question with that. And I think maybe clarifying what it means when we're saying raffles are not allowed. They're saying that their PTAs have one large, I'm going to say, event a year with very nice prizes, up to sometimes 50, 60 prizes. So what are we stating when we're saying no raffles?
Okay. Again, I think the event that they're talking about. So what I was talking about is giving away a prize for somebody who's, again, at your event, and you want to, like, thank you all for coming, and we're going to give outdoor prizes. Nobody has paid you money for the chance to win that. But it sounds like this event is more like a basket raffle type event, or I think we call them tricky trays at some places. I think we have all those things where you buy tickets and you put them in the various buckets, and then there's a drawing to see who won that. Um, the number one thing that you really need to do is refer to the gaming guidelines. We do have some on our website under the resource guide. So there's a special sheet on gaming, and I think that should be your first stop. We kind of summarize the gaming laws and the gaming rules from the New York State Commission on Gaming. That covers everything from your tricky tray all the way up to now online gaming, online betting for sports, which is already $1 billion plus business in New York State. So there's a lot there. So we've kind of summarized what the things that we think PTAs are involved in. So I recommend going to that guidance and then working with your region director to get further if needed.
Okay.
Patty, I have a question, and
Sure.
I put it in the chat. One of the units had, asked me about 50/50. So if they, and I think it's just like, I don't think it's like $500 or anything like that. So if they say, at the end of our meeting, we'll have a 50/50 drawing instead of using the word raffle, is that something, just again, staying away from that word?
Stay away from the word raffle, but even that's just straight out kind of gambling, gaming, right? Like it's only cash, right? So we would discourage that as well.
Okay.
We discourage it. Again,
Okay.
we do have guidelines on that. The rules for 50/50, I think, are part of the guidelines. But if not, we can get them. If you don't see them, you can reach out to myself and I can help you get there. I mean, we would rather something be a little more like if you're doing a drawing at the end, it's for something maybe like PTA related, like you're gonna raffle, you're gonna raffle, I just said it. You're gonna give away a t-shirt, that's from your school or a magnet or something like that, your PTA magnet. I think that's a better way for PTA to be operating than to just doing a cash
Okay.
prize.
I think the event might have been an outside adult only event, not on the premises of school. But I just wanted clarification. So that's what it was.
And those that are just adults only tend to get more people to put into the 50/50. And
Yeah.
you have to just be careful you don't go too far over the prize amount because then it has to be reported to the IRS. So again, that's a whole nother set of things to look at. So if it goes over $600, I think, and I don't quote me on that, but I think it's $600, then you have to report that prize to the IRS.
Okay,
And
thank you.
the person has to pay taxes.
I'll let them know. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. We have a question about swag. If there is swag that's being stored in somebody's home, and let's say there's a flood, is that covered by AIM or is it the homeowner's insurance that covers it?
There, there may likely be coverage under the home insurance. We would encourage you to check under the homeowners first. And then under the AIM policy, there are some limitations around certain weather events. So it would just depend on exactly, just a general flood, or was it ongoing seepage or something like that. But generally speaking, the policy is designed to cover for rain or things like that. And if it's not covered under the homeowners, it would be covered under us.
Okay. I have a follow-up to axe throwing, and I'm trying to go through it because it's a little bit, I'll just read it as it says. Okay. If a PTA obtains supplemental coverage for something like axe throwing, so the activity can be included in the PTA event, what will AIM cover and not cover? Obviously, they would not cover an injury due to the axe throwing or any other red activity, but would all other aspects of the event still be covered? So in other words, if axe throwing is happening at the PTA event, but a participant slips, falls, injures himself in any way that is unrelated to the axe throwing activity, would that injury be covered by AIM?
Yes, it would.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's all the questions I have right now.
That was a good list of questions.
It was. If that's the end of our questions, I just want to again thank everyone for attending, and thank you for your participation in giving us the questions, because, Jamie has been generous with her time and working with us and providing this awesome webinar. But again, it's just to make sure that you understand the rules of your insurance and the coverage of your insurance, so that you can be a better informed PTA and or council. I just want to thank you all again, and thank Jamie for taking the time to spend with us, and thanking again. I'm just very excited. I hope you got the answer for the special question. I believe Jamie covered it. And for the and I also just want to put a plug in for two things. One, if you haven't already taken the opportunity to listen to Bite Size, the podcast, please take the time to do that. That's on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube. It's four. I always forget the other one. But it's Bite Size. And one of the things that made me feel very happy was when someone said, I experienced, that's my voice on that podcast. And I felt very good about that. And the other thing is, if you have not already registered for our convention, please make sure you register for the convention. We're going to there's a lot of business to cover, but one of the best things is we have some really great, awesome workshops and some wonderful presentations for you. But Patty, I'm going to turn it to you to give our final good nights.
Thank you. Wow. I appreciate the opportunity. I want to just thank Theda Smith from our New York State PTA office for her assistance tonight. She is another resource for you related to insurance. So you can contact her as well by email or phone to the New York State PTA office, your region directors, your region treasurers. A lot of us, we have been working with this insurance over the years, so we're familiar and can answer questions, but always know that when there isn't that question that we can answer, we can go to AIM. I think personally, over the years, the amount of money that we spend on our policy is probably the best PTA money that you can spend, short of membership dues. So thank you again to all for coming on tonight. Share this news with other units in your area so that they all know the answers. This, of course, has been recorded, so it's always going to be good to go back and watch, when a new question comes up that you remember was answered here. So again, Jamie, I can't thank you enough. I know we'll see somebody from AIM Insurance, we hope, in Niagara Falls.
I'll be there.
Oh, good. We're looking forward to it. So it's always great to ask those questions in person. So I want to wish everybody a great night. Here in Western New York, we're all getting ready to watch the Bills play against the Dolphins. So we're all excited for that tonight. And so those of you that have to help children with homework or do some other PTA business, whatever it is you have to do tonight, I wish you all the best and look forward to the next time we're all together.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Robin, I'm going to jump off because we have an exec call too. So I'll talk to you soon.
Great. Thank you, Patty. Thank you
All
for
right, take
everything.
care. Great job. Thanks.